The Security Council, it is my honor to welcome you all to the official closing ceremony of the 19th annual session of General Model United Nations. With no further ado, I would also like to officially start today's closing ceremony. It is now my pleasure to give the floor to the Secretary General of GMUN 2022, Victoria Maluzel. Ms. Secretary General, you have the floor.
Thank you, Master of Ceremony. Honorable Emian directors and officers, fellow colleagues, dear delegates, distinguished guests, esteemed members of the ICJ, hardworking members of staff, security, and press, good afternoon. Before beginning my speech, I would like to draw your attention to what is happening a few thousand kilometers from here. An actual war has just begun in Europe. We're not referring to a historical period, but to the present day. Ukrainian people are being forced either to enroll or to flee their mother country, and those who have no other option than staying are now suffering constant attacks, mainly bombings, which are not only destroying their houses, but also injuring and even killing them. I am aware that we cannot be indifferent when it comes to such an atrocity. It is now a collective responsibility for all countries, even when not directly involved, to do everything to contrast the current conflict. Because being born in a developed country during a peaceful age does not mean that we are not able to tackle issues concerning other parts of the world. For now, as we are sitting safely in this room, I ask you to take a moment to reflect on the 2 years of global pandemic we have just experienced, and as we started to convince ourselves that we were going back to normal, on the conflict that is going to affect so many innocent people. Let us please dedicate a minute of silence to all the lives that have been taken and all those that are now being taken in this raging conflict. Thank you. So, as we reach the end of these 3 marvelous days of conference, I cannot help but express my utmost satisfaction with the results we have achieved. After months of uncertainty, of fear of letting people down, of constant doubts about the possibility of holding the conference in person, I can now say that all the effort we put in this work was worth it. Against all odds, this year's GeMUN was an actual success, and I owe it to each one of you who participated in your respective role. Like threads in a sweater, everyone is needed to make GeMUN work, a project in which collaboration is key to triumph, even in the trickiest situations. None of this would have been possible without the people I had the pleasure of working with to set it up, who made it even more memorable for me. The General Model United Nations has been a staple in my life for the last 5 years, a thrilling experience I looked forward to every February. Knowing this is the last time I can take part in it makes me extremely sad, but also thankful for what this experience has taught me year after year. The conference allowed me to become a different person, Recalling my whole journey, from the time I was a terrified delegate about to speak in front of a committee, or the time I had the opportunity to serve on the Security Council, to the role I have the honor of carrying out today, I realize how much GeMUN has made me grow. I am certainly less shy now, but I'm also more confident and aware of the power and influence of my actions. GeMUN has allowed me not only to mature, but also to meet countless people from all over the world, and even more importantly, to make many friends to whom I owe the success of this event. My amazing colleagues from the Secretariat, Alice, Carlotta, Giada, Sara, Chiara, Viola, Raffaella, and Vittoria, thank you for always staying by my side since we first started teaming up together last year. Your skills and expertise have been crucial. Dear MUN directors, Mr. Eduardo Lozada Cabruja and Mr. Daniel Orlando, thank you for supporting my choices and always challenging me to be the best version of myself. If we can speak from a podium after 3 entire days of conference, it is all because of you. None of this would have been possible without your relentless work and dedication. And I could not have asked for better teachers to set up perhaps the most challenging edition of GeMUN ever. Further thanks are owed to the fundamental heads of staff, Marina and Sofia, of security, Mattia and Gabriele, and of press, Ludovica and Tommaso, whose work often remains hidden from views, but determines the delicate balance of the conference, especially during the first face-to-face conference held after almost 2 days of video calls and online events. And finally, thanks to each of you, to the esteemed members of the ICJ, the GeMUN officers, and all the delegates, always so enterprising and willing to do anything to make their voice heard. As people who are about to step into adulthood, I assume we all feel worried about the issues that surround us, from global warming to the spread of diseases or to the increasing violence, just to name a few. Nonetheless, seeing all of you brought together here to find possible solutions to these matters makes me highly hopeful for the future. Indeed, only through collaboration, mutual respect, and trust, we will be able to face the challenges that lie ahead. And there is no better forum than GeMUN to carry out these intentions. I express once again my deepest gratitude for this event, and I yield the floor back to the Master of Ceremony.
Thank you, Vittoria. I would like to give the floor now to the Presidency of the International Court of Justice for the proclamation of the case's verdict. President and Co-President, you have the floor.
Thank you. Honorable Master of Ceremony, Secretary and Undersecretary General, MUN Directors, Officers, distinguished guests, esteemed delegates, indispensable members of staff, security, and press, fellow members of the ICJ, good afternoon. I am Sara Loriga, and this year I'm honored to serve as co-president of the ICJ for the second time. I have studied here at GeMUN as a member of the staff. In my third year, I had the opportunity to work closely with the MUN directors as their assistant, and for these last 2 years, I have been co-president of ICJ. I have had the chance to help organize this conference several times and on various levels, and let me tell you, it is pretty impressive. That is why I would like to congratulate all of you, all of us, for the incredible job that we have done. As this is my 5th and last year both at GeMUN and of high school, I have been trying to take in every little moment for one last time. Now, I know that may have sounded just slightly tragic, but you see, it isn't. Since the first time I have taken part in this conference, these 3 days of February have always been among the happiest of the year. It has always been a period of the school year I look forward to. Well, I looked forward to. Throughout my 5 years of GeMUN, I've laughed, I've cried, I've learned how to walk on high heels, which in my opinion is a necessary skill in life that I never would have learned so early on in my life otherwise. I've also learned what it means to be part of a group that works best when they work together and that doesn't work at all if even one member is absent. I've learned what it is like to be head of a conference and have people depend on you. I have had to learn how to teach and what it feels like to be on the other side with a classroom full of peers waiting for you to tell them about international law in a language that isn't our mother tongue. I have met so many people that are talented and competent, that care about what we are trying to do here 3 days a year, that work for all the other days of the year for just these 3 to be perfect. I have met all these people who have put their effort, time, patience, blood, sweat, and tears into bringing this conference to life, and who, after all that we went through in the past 2 years, deserve to be here among their colleagues and friends enjoying the unforgettable experience that is GeMUN. As per tradition, I would like to give some special thanks to all the people that have made this year's GeMUN possible. I would like to thank our school, Liceo Linguistico Internazionale Grazia Delegate, for giving me the opportunity to take part in this event for 5 consecutive years, taking on different roles. I would like to thank the MUN directors that I have listened to and tried to meet all of our numerous and tedious requests, even when they didn't make sense to them. I would like to thank the members of staff and security. I was once one of them, and I miss it so much. It felt like family. And even now that I have left, you still treat me like one of your own, so thank you for that feeling. And thank you to the press team that makes us look good in the pictures that will always remind us of the time when we were at GeMUN, even if they sometimes kidnap our judges and advocates for interviews. Thank you to the young women who I've worked with so far for being a source of inspiration and for being so exceptional that one day you will definitely help change the world, just like the rest of you. Thank you to our judges who have been suffering great pains every Friday afternoon since October, learning about the documents presented by the advocates, the procedures of the court, and principles of international law. And thank you, advocates, for your hard work and perseverance. I know firsthand how demanding working with our president can be sometimes. Thank you, Federico. You are a missing piece, even when you're not here, like you haven't for the past 3 days. And thank you, Chiara, for choosing me among all the other people that you could choose from to be your friend and your co-press. Thank you to all of you.
Thank you, Sarah, and good afternoon, everyone. Since it was established in 1946, our court has always represented a forum where disputes could be addressed through diplomacy rather than bullets. In 2017, Ukraine filed an application with the ICJ. We were called upon to adjudicate whether the Russian Federation violated its obligation under the International Convention for the Suppression of the Financing of Terrorism and the International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination. After 3 days of trial, I am pleased to announce that we have reached a verdict, which our case finds the state of Ukraine, represented by advocates Carbone and Noboa, against the Russian Federation, represented by advocates Mirisola and Zilioli. The winning party is the respondent party. Advocates, congratulations. I will now be reading an extract from the verdict. The International Court of Justice orders judges and decrees that censorship on journalists in Crimea is politically motivated. Ukrainians and Crimean Tatars are discriminated against on the basis of their ethnicity and have been revoked the right to freedom of opinion and expression and the right to education and training. The Russian Federation has violated its obligation under the International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination. The actions carried out by the separatists do not constitute acts of terrorism under international law. The support provided by the Russian Federation to the separatist forces does not constitute by any means financing of terrorism, and therefore does not fall within the scope of the ICSFT, and the Russian Federation has not breached the ICSFT. After looking at the evidence provided by both the applicant and the responding parties, the following measures should be put forward in order. 1. That the UN opens an investigation to ensure that both Russian and Ukrainian citizens' fundamental human rights are respected. 2. That Ukraine and the Russian Federation preserve the cultural diversity presented in both countries by granting ethnic minorities the full enjoyment of human rights, such as, but not limited to, linguistic education and the right to freedom of peaceful assembly and association. And 3. That both parties may interpellate the ICJ for any further issues on the matter. Finally, we have some awards to give out. The honorable mention goes to Judge Camera. The Best Judge Award goes to Judge Ravera and Judge Gurini. And the Best Advocate Award goes to Judge Zilioli. Congratulations, everyone. Please, Judge Ravera and Gurini and Advocate Zilioli, approach the podium for your awards.
Thank you, Chiara and Sara. It is now my pleasure to give the floor to the Undersecretary General of GMUN 2022, Carlotta Ziniego. Ms. Undersecretary General, you have the floor.
Thank you, Master of Ceremony, for the floor. Fellow members of the Secretariat, President and Co-President of the International Court of Justice, honorable officers, delegates, MUN directors, distinguished and respected guests, and indispensable members of staff, security, and press, good afternoon. I'm Carlotta Ziniego. I'm 18 years old and currently attending my last year at the Deutsche Schule GeMUN. To begin, I would like to thank you all for taking part in this conference. It has been an immense honor for me to serve as one of this year's Undersecretary General. Today is ending my fourth and last GMUN, and for the first time, I've received the honor to speak at the closing ceremony, and I'm definitely shaking more than expected. It's wonderful seeing all of you here in our beautiful palaces, debating once again in presence. Last year's GMUN has worked well, but honestly, we were all secretly only waiting for one thing: someone shouting at his mother in a classic Italian accent because he has forgotten his microphone on. For me, this conference is a first light of light at the end of the tunnel of this sanitary crisis. It is a comeback to normality after 2 years which haven't been normal at all. However, I think I'm speaking for the most of you when I say I've learned something through the pandemic. And by something, I'm not only referring to how to wear a mask on my nose or under it. Personally, I understood more than ever that something that today is far away from us could in fact knock at our doors just a few days later. And that's what I think is the real aim of MUN conferences: to cross the physical borders that divide us from other realities and fill in the gap between us and those. Because sometimes, as privileged societies, we have the presumption to think of our lives as of the only ones, and deliberately choose to close an eye when it comes to what is happening on the other side of the world. And that's the problem that affects us today. We're stuck in with medias trying to distract us, while not far away from us, there is a world of egoism and tyranny. It's time to look away from our phones, from Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, and for other population, Facebook, and roll up our sleeves to make this world a better place for everyone. That's exactly what I saw during these 3 days of conference: people knowing what is happening at the other side of the world and caring about finding solutions to these problems. Needless to say, I am fascinated about how brilliant the results of every committee are. Delegates, I really hope someday you will have the chance to see all your proposals come true. It has been amazing to see how much work and dedication on the debated topics, but I would like to remark the immense work that has been done in the last few months to make sure all of this could be possible. Walking on the floors of Delegate on Friday afternoons made me realize how much effort everyone puts in GeMUN, and I think all of us sitting in this room is the result of this hard work. First, I would like to thank the MUN directors, Mr. Lozada and Mr. Orlando, as every year you have made this conference possible, and needless to say, without you, none of us would be sitting here today. But a special thanks goes to Mrs. Lehmann, who gives us from Deutsche Schule Genua every year the chance to take part in this conference. I know I've been talking long, and we have already heard everyone before me naming all the ones who helped me making this 3 days real. And I'm pretty sure also the next colleagues will go on with the same standard monotone phrases. So I'm just going to say a sincere thank you. We've built a great team. GeMUN has been an experience I will never forget. And with these words, I yield the floor back to the Master of Ceremony.
Thank you, Carlotta. It is now my pleasure to give the floor to the Undersecretary General of GeMUN 2022, Giada Dentone. Ms. Undersecretary General, you have the floor.
Thank you, Master of Ceremony, for the floor. Esteemed directors and members of the Secretariat, honorable chairs, fellow delegates, respectable members of the ICJ, distinguished guests, indispensable members of staff, security, and press, good afternoon. My name is Giada Dentone. I'm 18 years old and I'm attending my 5th and final year at Liceo Linguistico Grazia Deledda in Genoa, where I focus my studies on languages such as English, Russian, and German. When I look back on my first GeMUN in 2018, on that 14-year-old staff member who excitedly entered Palazzo Ducale, I am proud of the entire journey I have had up to now. After being a delegate and a chair, this year I had the honor of serving you all as Undersecretary General of GeMUN 2022, and believe me when I say it has been a real pleasure to see the results of our hard work in these free, active, and fruitful days of debate. All of this wouldn't have happened without our wonderful Secretariat and inspiring MUN directors, but also without all our essential staff, security, and press team. I want to give a special thank you to all of you for making my last experience in GeMUN unforgettable. But I also want to thank you, my fellow officers and delegates. Nowadays, we are experiencing an atmosphere of tensions and social, health, economic, and political problems. And like every year, but especially this year, I believe each one of us has demonstrated how our generation deserves the opportunity to be heard. The truth is that, unfortunately, we live in a world where violence, discrimination, and disparities are still very present, and this is what we wanted to underline with the theme of GeMUN this year, Minding the Gap. The number of people who are unable to access to healthcare, the number of children who do not have access to a good education, and the number of women who cannot speak their minds freely without risking their lives is still too high. My heart tightens when I realize how fortunate we all are to be here today, without hunger, fatigue, or the fear of dying for saying one wrong word. With the means available to us, we now have the opportunity to tackle all these issues, because one day we will inevitably face them. But in order to do so, we have to stay together. Now, I would like you to think about the word together. By adding a simple E at the end of the word itself, we can read it like to get there. Now, this simple concept teaches us that in order to get somewhere, we have to stick together. Having learned the importance of teamwork, trust, and cooperation through GeMUN, I have come to the realization that unless we listen and accept opinions and ideas other than our own, we will never be able to join forces to solve all the humanitarian problems worldwide. Please take a moment to reflect on my words and what the experience of GeMUN has left in each one of you, because we cannot deny the inevitable. Our world and its population's future lies in our own hands. Thank you all for your attention from the bottom of my heart. I wish you all the very best, and I yield the floor back to the Master of Ceremony.
Thank you, Jada. It's now my pleasure to give the floor to the Co-President of the General Assembly of GMUN 2022, Viola Costa. Ms. Co-President, you have the floor.
Thank you, Master of Ceremony, for the floor. Honorable MUN directors, fellow members of the Secretariat and officers, Presidency of the International Court of Justice, respected delegates, distinguished guests, and indispensable staff, security, and press. Good afternoon. I'm Viola Costa, I'm 17 years old and currently attending my 4th year at Liceo Linguistico Internazionale Grazia Delegate. This is my first GeMUN experience, and let me just say how honored I am to serve as co-president of the GA. This year's GA was truly wonderful. I saw all the delegates pouring their hearts and souls into solving these ongoing issues. I loved all your enthusiasm and participation. You know, I still remember my very first GeMUN. I was sitting over there in one of the back rows of Sala Maggior Consiglio, so excited but still unaware that it would have been the beginning of such an amazing journey. The very same journey that has led me here, sitting at this table with my fellow brilliant colleagues. It's really been a pleasure working with each and every one of you. Thank you. I still remember how I looked up at the secretariat of the time and thought, one day I'm gonna be there sitting with my secretariat delivering my speech at the ceremony. And I still can't believe that that day has finally come. Now, I could tell you all about how much GeMUN means to me and how much it has made me grow. But instead, I would like to tell you about what I learned during these years. If you had asked me during my first year of GeMUN how I would have imagined delivering my speech during the ceremony, I probably wouldn't have described it exactly like this. First of all, I didn't think that I was going to be this emotional and nervous. I'm not gonna lie, standing here before all of you is literally making my palms sweat. I'm literally trembling. Secondly, never would I have imagined that we were all going to be wearing masks, keeping distance, sanitizing our hands, checking our temperature. This pandemic has completely changed our lives, and especially all of our social relations. Despite all the negative aspects that this pandemic has brought, I believe we all managed to take something positive out of it. In my case, I learned 2 very valuable lessons. First of all, I learned how strong and resilient we all are. The pandemic has been a great challenge for each and every one of us, I believe. Thus, I want to congratulate you. I might not know all of you on a personal level, but the only thing that I'm aware of is your resilience. The pandemic has tested every one of us, but we are all here now, seeing each other face to face and not on a screen. We actually did it. Seeing you here is truly, truly amazing and such an emotion, and I appreciate it a lot. Because the other thing that the pandemic told me is to appreciate the small things. I used to take everything I had and experienced for granted because it was my everyday. But when that everydayness was taken away from me, from us, it hit me. I understood how lucky I was, how lucky we all were. Now we are thankfully getting back to that everydayness, the everydayness that the pandemic took away. But unfortunately, we can say that it's the same for everyone. We cannot and we must not generalize. Recent events show it. 2 days ago, when we were lobbying safe here in Palazzo Ducale or Camera di Commercio or Prefettura, bombs were being dropped in Ukraine. And in that exact same moment, transgender people were being discriminated. Violence and feminicide were taking place. Taliban kept occupying Afghanistan. COVID-19 vaccines, exactly like other essential resources, weren't being divided equally among all the states. Unfortunately, I could go on listing all these catastrophes for a long time. These are all linked by a simple concept, and that is inequality. Why do we get to carry on with our lives when towns are being bombed, when people are being discriminated against just for wanting to be who they are, when inequality is all around us? We need to actually take charge. We need to mind that gap and make it in existence. Because as long as inequalities exist, the world will never be just. The world will never be how we all want it to be. To conclude, the only thing I feel like asking you and I want to ask you is for this GeMUN to be meaningful, for it not just to be an experience to live in a drawer once we all get home, for it to be a means, a tool that you can apply in your daily lives. Next time you see any form of inequality, don't close an eye, don't look away. Take charge, speak up, and actually mind that gap. That's the only way we can make a real and permanent change. I really hope you all enjoyed your time here. Congratulations for all your hard work. Thank you for making this GeMUN an unforgettable experience. I would like to thank again our incredible Moon directors, Mr. Lozada and Mr. Orlando. And thank you from the bottom of my heart. I now yield the floor back to the Master of Ceremony.
Thank you, Viola. I would like now to give the floor to this year's conference charity responsible, Matilde Costanzo and Gianluca Storchi.
Thank you. Honorable members of the Secretariat and Officer, esteemed Moon directors and members of the ICJ, delegates and indispensable members of staff, security and press, distinguished guests, good afternoon. We are the two heads of charity, Matilde Costanzo and Gianluca Storchi. We are attending our final year of high school at Liceo Linguistico Internazionale Grazia Deledda. We are really pleased to announce that this year, thanks to your generosity, we have collected the outstanding sum of 350 euros, which will be donated to HelpCode, a charitable association based in Genoa which guarantees the right to be children and to receive a proper education for children struggling all over the world. We are really proud to have been involved in this project with our co-workers of staff, Lavinia Quaglia, Giorgia Verrini, and Alice Zaffoni, and of course the members of security, Lisa Quaghi and Francesca Persini. Thank you for your attention.
In the past 3 fulfilling days, we have experienced what HelpCode volunteers encounter in the course of their daily work. From listening to their story, we have learned the values that characterize the people doing this work. One sentence particularly stood out to us, so we wish to share it with you. We believe in change, and we believe that change in every community comes from children. For this reason, we take care of their rights, so that they can become adults and make their dreams come true. In conclusion, we want to thank you all for your collaboration and support you gave us the last couple of days. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like now to give the floor to GeMUN Director Eduardo Lozada. Mr. Director, you have the floor.
Dear guests and participants, it is definitely a beautiful feeling to be standing here in front of you. Sore feet and heavy eyelids, but with a heart exploding with joy pride and, of course, gratitude. So my first words are to thank you and to congratulate you all for the amazing job you have done here in these 3 very intense days. Your commitment, your passion and dedication are the fuel that keeps this colossal machine running, and it is always amazing to see you at work. On a personal level, allow me to tell you that the moments we're creating together will live rent-free in my heart forever. You have no idea how important this is to me, especially after the forced isolation that the COVID pandemic brought to us. So thank you again for making this conference to happen at this precise moment in time. Moment in time, yeah. You might have heard the English expression, may you live in interesting times. The story goes that even though it sounds like a blessing, it is actually a Chinese curse. Life is probably better when uneventful, when there is nothing that disrupts your everyday routine, your serenity, your peace. How peculiar, peace. Then, what an interesting time to be in GeMUN, you will say, when our smartphones are buzzing the breaking news about a nation enacting a military offensive upon another, winds of war blowing from the east. Bombs and explosions are generating a wave of indignation worldwide. And we have been witnessing spontaneous protests sprouting in front of us, right outside the building. Seems like we are, at this very moment, on the verge of a global conflict. Well, what happened just a couple of days ago has been happening since forever, albeit in many different ways. I want to show you a comic vignette about the Argentinian cartoonist Joaquín Lavado Tejón, better known as Kino. It depicts 2 characters from his famous strip Mafalda. Here you see Susanita, a little girl whose biggest aspiration is to find the man of her dreams who is going to give her children in abundance and being the perfect housewives, what we call the white picket fence dream. And I'm stressing the word white on purpose. All she wishes for is to keep her uninteresting and uneventful life unbothered. In fact, if we look closely, we can see that she's reading a rather gloomy newspaper showing, by contrast, people living some very interesting times. It shouldn't come as a surprise that with such big relief, next image, please. Oh, luckily, the world is far, far away. Mafalda's face on the right shows what we are all thinking right now after such a comment. But let's go back to the newspaper that Susanita is reading and look again at the details. If I didn't tell you now, could you say this trip dates back to the 60s, last century? It still looks like a sign of the time, our time. We are seeing more or less the same conflicts that we have now. Recently, I had the chance to talk to some people from Palestine. You might guess whom and where, and you will be probably right. About the headlines that made it to the newspaper right after Russia's attack on Ukraine. Israel has bombed Damascus. When I commented about it, the reaction was quite confusing to me, at least briefly. They were not shocked at all. That happened also last week, they said, and the week before. It has been happening for a long time. So I quickly reviewed in my mind the recent images of civilians running to find shelter in the city's underground, leaving behind the home where they grew up, the place they share with their loved ones, the bed where they used to feel safe, tucked under the blankets, the place where maybe, just maybe, they will be able to go back to, hoping for nothing but to live an uneventful life. And feeling a bit embarrassed, I realized that this story is nothing new. Those exact scenes have been seen thousands of times throughout history in books, films, newspapers. The same script, taking the shape of a million different personal stories of people living an interesting time. Some of them are living in war. Some of them live with violence, poverty, and disease, and they want to escape. Anyway, it doesn't make any difference what they are escaping from if they have to escape in the first place. I hope this doesn't come across the wrong way. I promise this is not whataboutism. It is precisely the opposite. As it should be clear for all of us by now, that there are not uninteresting times, ever. What there actually exists are people who choose to throw away the newspaper and pretend that such uninteresting times don't even exist, outside their bubble of privilege. Because that is what it is. The mere possibility to keep oneself unbothered means you have a privilege. So many are not as fortunate, possibly not far away, if not even within the safety of your space. Struggles don't necessarily take the shape of a bomb falling from the sky for everyone to notice, to be on the headlines of the newspapers. Not all struggles make the news all the time, or at all, indeed. But they are just as real. There is no hierarchy when it comes to pain. Some people live interesting times every day when they cannot find the medicine they need for a chronic disease that afflicts them. Some others live interesting times when they find themselves having to justify their own identity just because someone cannot see it. It is also an interesting time for those who don't conform to what is perceived as the norm, thus seeing even their basic rights restricted. The list could go on and on, but whatever the reason, all of these interesting times share the same root, a gap of power that provides some with the social, financial, and political stand to decide over the life of others. Sometimes, despite our good intentions, we might even be guilty of that. And just as we feel powerless as we stand before events that seem way too big for us, with consequences that resonate on a global scale, we must be aware that we are not powerless at all. Even the smallest of gestures, for good or for ill, ripples just as strongly. So remember that you possess that privilege to choose whether to turn your back, like Susanita, or face someone else's interest in times. Hence comes my plea for all of you who I'm sure already care as you are sitting here. Please choose kindness and compassion. You will see that if you do, even the minuscule gesture will look like a rock splashing in the ocean, pushing water out of the way, making a ripple that moves far and wide, eventually reaching every single shore. Sure, the ripples we create will have to fight adverse currents, and they may seem weaker in comparison, but that must not stop us. We need to keep throwing rocks into the ocean, not once, not twice, not even when we think the job is done. Because I warn you, we will never be done. Change doesn't come at the blink of an eye, and kindness and compassion are not as loud as bombs and blatant gestures of hate. So let us keep building up that wave with as many stems as we can to make kindness and compassion just as definitely loud. I'm sure you have experienced firsthand kindness and compassion at some point of your life. I have. And believe me, it can literally save lives. Make kindness and compassion the norm. They are the most powerful and beautiful forces of nature, of human nature. I hope your experience here at GeMUN has been inspiring, rewarding, and also fun. We were most certainly pleased to have you here with us, and we extended an invitation for GeMUN 2023. So see you all next year. Thank you all very much. I yield the block back to the Master of Ceremony.
Thank you, Mr. Director, for your truly heartwarming speech. We will now entertain the Best Delegate Awards. I would like to call the chairs of the ECOFIN committee to give out the awards.
Thank you, Master of Ceremony. Honorable MUN directors and officers, indispensable members of staff, security, and press, fellow delegates and members of the ICJ, good afternoon. Here we are, me and my dear colleague, but above all, dear friend, Elia Merola, after 5 years of GeMUN together, this time embodying the main chairs of the ECOFIN committee, flanked by our hardworking Elettra Speciale and Ginevra Certusi. During the past few days, we had the opportunity to discuss in the ECOFIN committee crucial topics such as the impact of the intensive crops and the Palestinian situation. Our expectations were fully satisfied and all the delegates from our committee were actively involved in the debate. In particular, we would like to give the honorable mentions to the delegations of Albania and Israel. So please stand up.
Thank you, Greta. Last but not least, we would like to honorably mention the delegation of Bangladesh. Bangladesh, please stand up. Now, conclusively, we would like to empathize that we feel so grateful for the experiences we have had in GeMUN as delegates, chairs, and part of the Secretariat last year. We have walked our path with passion, dedication, and above all, the excitement of two 14-year-old teenagers. Watching you delegates debate made us recall to when we were delegates with so many aspirations and goals. And now GeMUN has finally come to an end for us. And now, owing to our experience, we feel the right to give the title of Best Delegate to the delegation of Jordan.
I would now like to call the chairs of the Circums Committee to give out the awards.
Thank you. Fellow members of the Secretariat, President and Co-President of the ICJ, honorable officers, delegates, and UN directors, guests, and indispensable members of staff, security, and press. My name is Elena Raseghezzo, and I'm currently attending my third year at Liceo Linguistica Internazionale Grazia Deledda, and I've been honored to serve as main chair of social humanitarian
and Culture Committee this year. And I'm also representing with my fellow colleague Chiara, our colleagues Michelangelo De Luca and Gloria Armento. The debate in our committee has been so fascinating and interesting, and we love the delegates' enthusiasm and participation. The flow of the debate has been really wonderful, and I'm genuinely proud of each and every one of you. I now yield the floor to my colleague Chiara.
Thank you very much, Eleonora. Good afternoon to all of you. My name is Chiara Cammilli and I'm attending the 5th year at Liceo Linguistico Grazia Deledda. This year is also the last one in which I have the opportunity to take part in this amazing experience. We would love to give awards to every single one of you, but unfortunately we can't, since you all have shown great interest and involvement in the conference, but some more than others. This year, honorable mentions goes to delegation of Panama. Stand up, Panama. Delegation of Greece. The third and final one goes to the delegate of Kazakhstan. We would like to commend you for your hard work and experience. In conclusion, the delegate who has shown the most skills and therefore wins this year's Best Delegates Award is Russian Federation. Once again, we want to congratulate you and say how proud of you we are. In heartfelt thank you.
We yield the floor back to the Master of Ceremony.
Now, I would like to give the floor to my fellow chairs of the Security Council Committee to give out the awards.
Distinguished guests, officers, delegates, staff, security, and press, good afternoon. We are Alessia, Gabriel, Vittoria, and Matteo, who unfortunately couldn't be here today, chairs of the Security Council. Throughout the past 3 days, we had fruitful debates about vaccines in war zones, the situation in Afghanistan, and the recent developments of Russia and Ukraine. During the debates, we had 3 videos, but all the delegates were extremely prepared, diplomatic, and active. We couldn't have asked for better. Finally, we thank Allah, staff, and security for their collaboration, especially with the difficult procedure of Security Council. I now yield the floor to Gabriel.
Uh, right. I'll keep this brief for the pleasure of all of you. I would just like to say one thing to the delegates and, of course, my fellow chairs. The goals of the Security Council aren't just to become the next world leaders or make changes and people who will eventually become great people someday, but it's also an opportunity to learn about the consequences and responsibilities of having too much power. And while our world leaders are out there denouncing each other and waging conflict for the cost of human lives, our delegates have spent the past 3 days not only setting aside their differences, but coming together to make productive and fruitful debate and resolutions. Well, not resolutions, remember, delegates, clauses. And I'll end it by saying this. We couldn't have asked for better delegates. And if we had the chance, and if time wasn't a constraint, we would have given you all that one last motion to follow up. And finally, I'd like to thank my fellow chairs. It's been a wild ride. We weren't just bad cop, good cop, but we were a team. And I couldn't have asked for a better chairing experience, honestly. Anyways, enough of me, enough of all this. Let's get to the honorable mentions. Okay, the honorable mentions go to the delegate of the United Arab Emirates, to the delegate of France, and finally the delegate of India. And now, the final award, the best delegate, goes to the most controversial delegate, the one that was the most indecisive. Call him what you want, but he was the most diplomatic and had some of the best speeches in the entire council. He does not need any more introduction. Delegate of Russia, please approach the podium. Sì. Adesso io. Oh.
Now, I would like to call the chairs of the ECOSOC committee to give out the awards.
Thank you, Master of Ceremony. Honorable member of the Secretariat, respectable members of the High Court of Justice, fellow officers, distinguished guests, and indispensable member of security, staff, and press. Good afternoon. I'm Gabriele Oliva, I'm 18 years old, and I'm currently attending my last and fifth year at Civico Liceo Linguistico Alessandro Manzoni di Milano. I cannot express the joy and the excitement I feel to be standing here in front of every single one of you. People, advisors, boys, girls, young men and women, after 2 years of pandemic that we have faced courageously, bravely, and together. I'm not from Genova, but this is my second GMUN. I can still remember the excitement I was feeling 2 years ago, representing Estonia in the Security Council, waiting for the honorable mentions and the Best Delegate Award. And here I am, giving it myself, alongside my wonderful and indispensable co-main chair Fabiola and the other co-chair Zoe, who have been my companion, my saviors, and along with me, survivors, I would say. These 3 days have been incredible. The debate was fruitful, the delegates were active, and we debated not only the topics that we have, but we faced two crises, during which one of them I had to come down the podium and be a delegate myself representing Ukraine instead of being the main chair. I could never be more grateful for the city of Genoa, for the hospitality, the kindness I feel every time I come and visit you. I'm not from here, but I feel like a citizen because you are the best people I could have ever met. Now, enough with compliments and kind words. It's time for the honorable mention. I know what it feels like to wait for the excitement of hear your name. I would like to give the first honorable mention, and my co-main chair will give the other two and the best delegate. With no further ado, the first honorable mention goes to the delegation of Panama. Please stand up. I will now yield the floor to my fellow co-main chair, Fabiola.
Thank you, Gabriele. Good afternoon. I am Fabiola Becchini, and I am attending my second year of high school at the Deutsche Schule Genua. In the last 3 days, I was very honored to be a chair in the ECOSOC. As my colleague has already pointed out, in these last 3 days, many delegates impressed the chairs with their outstanding debate performances. Still, only 4 delegates stood enough out to receive an award. In fact, the other honorable mentions go to the delegations of Austria and India. Congratulations, delegates. Finally, the Best Delegate Award goes to the delegate of the United States of America. Congratulations, delegate.
Lastly, I would like to call the chairs of the UN Women Committee to give out the awards.
Esteemed guests, fellow officers, honorable delegates and ICJ members, indispensable members of staff, security and press, good afternoon. We are Ginevra Jansong and Virginia Minasso, and this year we had the honor and the pleasure to serve as main chairs in the UN Women Committee. First, we want to thank our colleagues, Anna and Bianca, for working and sharing this experience with us. These days of conference have been beautiful, fruitful, and enlightening, and our hearts are filled with hope for the future of women's rights. We want to thank everyone who participated and contributing to the development of the debate, and who made these days of GeMUN the best experience possible. I now yield the floor to my fellow colleague.
Without further ado, we will now proceed with the awards. This year, the honorable mention will go to the delegation of Burundi. The delegation of Kenya. And finally, to the delegation of Russian Federation. Congratulations to you all, and thank you for your hard work. And now we will proceed with the Best Delegate. The Best Delegate Award for GeMUN 2022 will go to the delegation of Turkey. Thank you very much.
We will now entertain the Best Staff, Best Security, and Best Press awards. I would like to call the heads of staff, security, and press to give out the awards.
Thank you for the floor. Honorable Secretary General and Under-Secretary Generals, prestigious members of the ICJ, honorable chairs and fellow delegates, distinguished guests, indispensable members of staff, security, and press, good afternoon. We are Marina Mazzi and Sofia Velarde, and as heads of the staff, we are honored to have you here today at GMUN 2022. We are attending our 5th and 4th year at Liceo Linguistico Internazionale Grazia Deledda, and for one of us, me, this will be the last GMUN experience. Minding the gap is about differences, but it's also about similarities. As humans, we tend to focus on what separates us from one another, but we should rather work towards creating a better environment in which we can eradicate disparities and enhance the uniqueness that makes every single culture special. Here at GMUN, we try to simulate the United Nations diplomatic conferences, and we, members of the staff, are committed to creating a safe and organized space for participants to exchange ideas and thoughts. Even if our efforts often take place behind the scenes, we think that the organization of the staff team is a great example of how cooperation is the key to success. Acting in unity as a single entity makes it possible to overcome even the greatest of issues.
We would like to thank all of the staff members for the collaboration and respect you have shown over the past year and during these 3 days. We wish to express our heartfelt gratitude to our beloved MUN directors, Eduardo Lozada Cabruja and Daniel Orlando, who have supported us in the MUN experience and in our personal lives. We also wish to thank our colleagues and friends, Mattia Baffi and Gabriele Losicco, with whom we have been able to create a team of hardworking people. Last but not least, we would like to extend our congratulations to our Secretary General, Vittoria Maluzel, with whom we have, who put the entire organization on track with tremendous competence. Before we conclude, we would like to give 3 honorable mentions to some of the most hardworking members of the staff team: Isabella Profumo, Chiara Mastrovito, and Rebecca Napolitano. Please approach the podium. Dove sono? Ok, sono là. Sì. And now we're pleased to finally announce this year's best staff that stood out for her outstanding qualities, Martina Barbieri. We yield the floor back to the Master of Ceremony.
We would now like to call to the floor the best security, so please, the heads of security, please approach the podium.
Thank you for the floor. Honorable Secretary General and Under Secretary General, esteemed members of ICJ, officers and delegates, distinguished guests, indispensable staff, press, and astonishing member of security, good afternoon. We are the two heads of security, Gabriele Sicco and Mattia Baffi, both attending Liceo Linguistico Grazia Deledda. We are delighted to see you all here in presence and couldn't be happier to share this experience with each and every one of you. As a team, we have been working really hard over the last few months to make this a pleasant and memorable experience for everyone, and can happily say that the outcome exceeded our expectations. In these 3 days of debates, you've had the opportunity to discuss the issue of minding the gap, which perfectly reflects the stereotypes associated with our role as security guards. Most frequently, we are seen as the bouncers, the ones whose sole purpose is to prevent unwelcome guests from entering the halls of the conference. But that's the exact opposite of what we typically do here. It's about keeping order throughout the session and making everyone feel at home, even though they're far from home.
As we scroll through social media, thank you. We see photos and videos of what is happening not so far from us, which frightens us once again after 2 years of a pandemic. At the same time, this reminds us of how fortunate we are to feel safe at home and in these halls, and how important it is for us to use this safe platform to make sure everyone feels the same, which we can only achieve in unity. Behind what you have seen over the last 3 days, there is a strong team, a team that can cooperate and get along. We would like to thank each member of security for their hard work and dedication. Additionally, we would like to congratulate all of you on your collaborative efforts and mutual respect throughout the conference. Moreover, a special mention goes to the MUN directors and our English teachers for all the help and support that we have received.
Before we conclude, we'd like to give 3 honorable mentions to the ones who worked the most this year. Please approach the podium.
Federico Savio, Giulia Savio, Eric Priester.
Finally, we'll announce the best member of security. Please approach the podium. Luisa Fusco!
In the meantime, could the heads of press please approach the podium?
Thank you for the floor. Honorable Secretary General and Undersecretary Generals, prestigious members of the ICJ, honorable chairs and fellow delegates, distinguished guests, indispensable members of Staff Security and Press, good afternoon. Our names are Tommaso Turtur and Ludovica Tealdo. As heads of the press team, we're glad and pleased to have you here today at GMUN 2022. We're both attending our 5th and last year at Liceo Linguistico Internazionale Grazia Deledda. Therefore, this will perhaps be our last GMUN experience, but we are so grateful for everything GMUN has taught us. Despite all the issues and inconveniences we have been tackling throughout these last few years of pandemic, we have succeeded in making this challenge an opportunity to improve ourselves, not necessarily by faking a supposed normalcy, but by taking what's good from it and still trying to become more skilled, collaborative, and overall better people.
As the press team, our job is to share information about GMUN, and we do that through our newspaper, but also by keeping GMUN's social media profiles updated. This year's GMUN topic is Minding the Gap, and one of the very first steps to take in order to close the gap is that of spreading awareness about it, and information plays an essential role. We would like to conclude by thanking our school and MUN directors, Daniele Orlando and Eduardo Lozada, and all the members of the Secretariat, staff, and security that made everything we see today possible to happen. Finally, we would like to thank our indispensable team that worked hard together and cohesively throughout this last year. A special mention to our graphic designer's chief, Alessandro Cocurullo. That was in charge of all the graphic part of GMUN. And another special mention to our international guest, Bertram Munk, who helped us a lot these past few days. Now we will finally announce this year's best press members, Serena Albanese, Sabrina Pertica e Federica Rizzi. Please all approach the podium. Alessandro, Bertram too, please.
We yield the floor back to the Master of Ceremony.
Thank you. We will now watch the video prepared by the GMUN press team.
Should we start? Okay, could you please introduce yourself?
Yes, hi to all. I'm Gabriele Corsi. I'm from Italy.
In the Stockholm Assembly. My name is Kaisa and I am the delegate of China. Well, it doesn't say my name on my card.
And where are you from?
I am from Denmark.
So, could you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, give me 2 seconds. This
My name is Giarno, and I am here as the delegate of Argentina to this activity also this year.
My name is Ettore, and I'm the delegate of Nigeria for the GMUN.
Is this your first GMUN?
No, it's my third GMUN.
It's my second GMUN.
I'm Luisa Fusco, I'm attending my 4th year, and I'm the head of SOCOM.
I'm from Denmark.
for this, I'll play the role as the delegate of Kazakhstan. So now I'll be Kazakhstan.
And is this your for GeMUN?
No, yeah, for GeMUN, yes.
But in here in Italy?
Yeah, it is. It's the first time that I have attended a GMUN elsewhere in Denmark.
Which are your expectations for this GeMUN?
Well, my expectations are quite high because everyone talk about GMUN as a great conference, as great conferences, and well, so I have great expectations for this.
I really hope this can be like a fresh start for everybody. I guess we are all tired of doing things online, so being present is already enough.
My expectations are to be fine here and to listen a lot of resolution for the problems that the forum propose.
To have fun and listen interesting resolutions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Which are your expectations for this GeMUN?
I think they're very high because it's such a nice place. The people have been very awesome, and I genuinely just love Italy. I always love the people, and I love to travel. And this room is amazing, and I have no idea how GMUN pulled together to have such a nice space. I'm very impressed. At our school, we're just at the school building, so this is very impressive. But again, my expectations, they are just to have fun and to meet a lot of new people.
Hope that. Thank you.
Yeah.
What is going on right now?
We're debating a resolution submitted by Nepal.
And are you going to a party tonight?
Well, actually, we are going to because GeMUN is also about a fun time, so we're spending a fun time.
Okay.
So yeah, we're going somewhere. We still don't know where.
Okay, thank you. Excuse me. What is going on?
We in session, and we're discussing a resolution made by the USA about
And are you going to party tonight?
yeah, I am with some of the people from Palestine.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, we agreed to that, and I'm also going to see the football match between Genoa and Inter.
Thank you. What is going on right now? Well, right now we are debating critical something in GeMUN, and my role is one of teacher, so with my colleagues I'm leading the conference. And are you going to party art tonight? Of course I am. GeMUN is also has time to party art and get drunk during the night. And yeah, that's it. I'm sure it's gonna be very fun. Thank you.
It is now my pleasure to give back the floor to the Secretary General of GMUN 2022, Vittoria Maluzel.
It has been an honor for me, but it is now time to declare the 19th session of GeMUN officially closed.